Hello and welcome to the Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 edition of the SANS Internet Storm Center's Stormcast. My name is Johannes Ulrich and today I'm recording from the very cold Jacksonville, Florida. Well, today I wrote a quick article about geolocation and Starlink. Now, the reason this is an issue is that a lot of websites, networks are implementing geofencing where they are either blocking access from various geographic locations or display different content. Satellite networks have always been problematic. Traditional satellite internet providers have a few, often geostationary satellites that cover a large part of the globe. As a result, the IP address is often only very weakly linked to a particular location. Starlink is a little bit different in that respect. Starlink has these thousands of low Earth orbit satellites. Each satellite only covers a fairly small area on the globe, and Starlink also maintains a large number of ground stations that will then receive signals from satellites that are just currently covering that particular part of the globe. So it's going from the user to the satellite and then often right back to a ground station. Now, Starlink has the option to route traffic between satellites, but that's often only utilized, well, if you're trying to, for example, route around outages or maybe for ocean-faring vessels where, of course, there is no close-by ground station. The other thing that Starlink does is when you're looking at the public IP address, and Starlink does use the usual carrier-grade NAT for its users, and I'm talking about sort of the consumer users here. The IP address that's being assigned to a particular user, the public IP address, reverse resolves to an host name that actually includes the location of the particular ground station. It typically covers at least the country the particular traffic originates from, and for the US, for example, it's the state and then the particular city the ground station is associated with. Doesn't have to be exactly located in a city, of course, up to Starlink, how they're labeling these ground stations. But you should be able to come up with a reasonably fine-grained geolocation based on the host name and get something that's probably approximately as accurate as what you're getting sort of from an average kind of DSL cable modem provider, or in particular from mobile phone providers. If you do have problems with Starlink users complaining about being blocked or such, you may want to take a look at what particular database you're using to do geofencing, and maybe you're using an old database that doesn't really have that fine-grained resolution for Starlink. Then we have another sort of geolocation, or as Daniel, the author of the blog post, calls it, deanonymization issue. And this one is related to Cloudflare. The problem that Daniel is trying to address is how to actually geolocate at least approximately an anonymous user, a user that actually tries to stay anonymous by using VPNs or other special tools. The problem that comes up here is Cloudflare, and Cloudflare is being used to de-anonymize the user by essentially figuring out which Cloudflare server did store the particular content that you sent to that user. By identifying that Cloudflare server, you at least sort of get a rough geographic area where this particular user may be located, given, of course, that Cloudflare has these thousands of cache servers around the world. You just make sure that the user is accessing a unique URL from your server, and then you can basically scan Cloudflare's servers and check which one of these servers does have the content cached. You know the content was cached by that particular Cloudflare server because, well, it will then report that it didn't have to retrieve it from the original source, but actually retrieved it from cache. Interesting little issue here with these cantilever networks, of course, is not something that's necessarily unique to Cloudflare. Cloudflare is just very popular, which makes that sort of an interesting target here. I don't think it's a big privacy problem because you're still only very rough kind of, part of the country, maybe what country a user is located in, where you're able to sort of constrain the particular location of the user that you're trying to identify. And I have two stories actually that are closely related, so I'll cover them together. The first one comes from Dark Reading and covers how users are, very open in sending company secrets to various AI tools like Copilot and ChatGPT. The second one comes from the Register and is talking about the Sage accounting software that also introduced a Copilot-like feature that apparently has leaked data. The big problem here that a lot of people don't really understand is if you're interacting with one of these AI chatbots and Copilot-like tools, you're not necessarily working with your own sort of compartmentalized system like you would with, for example, a virtual machine or something like this. Instead, there is this large, vast database of learning data. And at this point, I haven't really seen a solution where this could be compartmentalized into different areas that could sort of enforce some form of access control. So essentially, every user that uses a particular AI system has access to the results of the entire sum of the total training data being used by this AI system. And oftentimes prompts that users are sending to these systems are also considered part of the training data. So be careful and definitely train your users to not send confidential data into these AI systems. This is, of course, particularly an issue for software developers who often are using these AI tools these days in order to develop proprietary code. And then a special warning for all Mac users out there. Homebrew, the collection of open source tools that is very popular with Mac users, I'm using it myself, was apparently the target of a more sophisticated phishing attack. What the attacker did here is that, first of all, they did register a lookalike domain name. Instead of brew.sh, that's the real name, they used brewe.sh. But not only that, they did not rely on just typos to get victims. They also paid for ads in Google's search results, which then ranked their search results all the way at the top. And of course, they used the usual trick to obfuscate the URL in the search result, so it looked like you clicked on the official brew.sh website. Interesting attack, and definitely something to be aware of. Luckily, it didn't last too long as far as I'm aware of. But if you did download not any software from Homebrew, but the Homebrew system itself, where you go to the Homebrew website, double check that you got the correct thing. And I'll link to the tweet by Ryan Chenke, who did originally identify this problem. Well, and this is it for today. So stay warm and thanks for listening, and talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.